All right, hey everybody, it's your boy Hunter Dragoon X, and gonna do something a little bit different today. I'm gonna do a game development stream for you guys. So as you can see, I've got Unity open here to a blank project. I just started a brand new 2D project using the Universal Render pipeline for two reasons. A, it's really lightweight, so if you build anything for the browser or mobile, it's gonna run good, um, graphically speaking. Um, and the other thing is it gives you the ability to use Shader Graph, which is a really powerful tool to build shaders without coding. And I'm notoriously bad at art stuff, so it helps me a lot, even though I am more of a programmer. Um, anyways, I was thinking about building a game, like a little survivor style game like Vampire Survivors or any of the multiple clones you've seen out there, because not only is it a fairly simple concept, I think, to get started, be really good to learn some of the. Oh, hello. And this is Mr. Fluffy Pants. If you haven't met him yet, he's a baby, and he likes to hang out. Um, anyways, let's get started. What's the first thing we need for our game? Our game is gonna need a guy that can move around. So let's go ahead and make a guy. And by make a guy, I mean we're not gonna be doing very much. I'm not even adding any graphics yet, so I've just added a basic two-dimensional square. This is gonna serve as our player. So I'm gonna rename that just so we know what it is. And then as he moves, I want the camera to move with him. You don't have to code anything to do this. We can just grab our camera and child it to our player, and then now whenever our player moves, camera's gonna move with him. Of course, there's absolutely zero going on in our scene here, so it won't even matter. Would it be better if yeah, I think that way you guys can see the preview a little bit better. There might be stuff over here that you'll need to see later. But for now, I think this is probably the optimal setup. So, anyways, let's go ahead and make a folder here for our player. And then we need to make a new C# script. Let's call this a player controller. Yeah, player controller. One second, guys. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, we'll do that. Player controller, and let's go to open this up. It's going to open Visual Studio so we can start coding. You can use any IDE you want. One thing is Unity has like a mono develop, or I mean you could use Notepad for all I care, but like I think Visual Studio works out good. There's a free community version that does all this stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to make a public void check for inputs, and then I'm going to check for inputs every time we have an update. So the way this works is every time the update runs is each time there's a new frame. So every single frame is going to be checking for button inputs. Now you could put all your inputs into the update loop, and that's fine. But later what I want to do is have like where it checks, is the game paused or is your character frozen? You know, anything that would remove control from your player. If that's happening, it's just going to skip that whole step. So instead of skipping a giant block of code when you're paused, it's just going to skip one little, like, you can reduce it to one line of code, and then all your meat and your potatoes that makes everything run is going to be in here, so to speak. So, yeah, that's how that's going to work. So let's go ahead and if, oops. I always forget if these are capitalized or not. Hopefully it is. Now, I'm trying to think here. What would be the best way to handle this? Form. Yeah, let's do it that way. Alright, so the input access can go from greater than 0. Alright, so your input access can go from between -1 to +1. So what I'm going to do is check that the absolute value of the horizontal axis is, sorry, I just got a funny text message. The horizontal axis is greater than 0. We're gonna want to move. We're gonna want to do something, right? So with that being said, we can go to our transform.position x is going to plus equal this input, and this isn't going to be great, but we're just going to new vector 2 position.x is going to be plus that, and then transform.position.y plus 0, and then we're gonna, did I really miss transform. I need to put an S there. Spelling is not my strong point, so anyways, we're just going to see if we can move from side to side now. One important thing you're going to do is make sure we go to add component and put that player controller on our square here. Hit play up in the editor, and oh, that's and as you can see in the preview, it doesn't look like it's moving. That's because the camera is staying with it. So if I take the camera off of it, oops, let's click back into our preview, you can see it moving. but I definitely want the camera to follow the player wherever you go. So let's actually remove that and say input dot get axis vertical. So now what we're doing is we're going to add the vertical and horizontal axis. Those are pre-built-in inputs in Unity, so it's going to take it's going to work with controllers. So if you hook up like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller, or like a generic computer joystick, it's going to be able to read those up and down inputs. It doesn't work for mobile. For mobile, you'll have to do something else, like look at the pointer position, just because mobile phones don't have joystick axes to work with. But for now, project built on PC for either PC or in the browser. This is going to work just fine. Really though, I'm thinking that this line of code moves the player. So what I really want to do is make a move. Oops. Sometimes the autocomplete gets really goofy. Likes to decide for you what things are doing. So I'm gonna go into here. I'll put the move here. And this is gonna seem really asinine right now, but I'm gonna go back and add more code into these little sections, because the more granular that you get with some of these things, the more control you can have later on. Like maybe I want something to happen right when you press a button, and I want something to happen right when you move, but not necessarily at the same time of either thing, because there could be more button presses that we use. So we're going to essentially use that to determine the differences between these two things. So anyways, yeah, so now we should have vertical and horizontal movement on our player. And you want to keep look up here, because again the camera is attached. So in our preview, it's going to, yep. All right, perfect. We move in. We can even move diagonally too if we hit both buttons at the same time. And I lost my guy. All right, so that's pretty good. We need to do a little bit more work though, because it's zooming around really fast, right? By just getting the axis. So in addition to getting the axis, we probably need to slow down the movement, so to speak. And to give you greater control over the movement, I think we should introduce a variable. So I'm gonna make a move speed variable. And then another thing that I always like to do is I like to make sure that I'm taking my values and I'm kind of normalizing them. And what that means is, if somebody's running on a 30 frames per second and somebody's running at 60 frames per second, and this update function runs every time there's an update, the person who's running on a game that's 60 frames per second is going to essentially have all of these functions run twice as often. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take something that's going to be the same for everyone, right? Kind of like in vector calculus, when you normalize a vector, it makes the magnitude of the vector 1, because it's like 1 unit, right? And so everything's the same. You can just look at the direction and not the magnitude of the vector. So that's kind of what I do here. I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but that's the term I use for it. Sorry, I love coffee, and I'm gonna drink a lot of it. Anyways, so what we need to do here, and I think I'm going to let's make a float called I think that time is a keyword. Float t. And then I'm going to set t equal to time dot delta time. And I may need this other places, so I may need to promote this out of a local variable and into a global variable, but we'll worry about that later. Oh, the other thing that I'd really like to do, let's make this public. That'll make it exposed to our editor so that we can very quickly from inside the Unity editor change the value of the move speed. And so what we're gonna do, I think this is gonna get too long, so let's say float x speed, y speed. So now we got two variables here that are be our x and our y speed. This is going to be equal to move speed times the horizontal axis times t. And we can just copy and paste most of this because we're only going to need to really change one word. And then we're going to go, hello. I can't see what I'm doing, buddy. Say hi. Guys, look at this belly on this cat. Don't you guys just love this? I love this. All right. So let's go ahead and let that build. Go on our player here, and you'll notice right here, move speed is now in the editor. So let's set that to 1. Because if it's 0, 0 times anything is 0, and you won't be able to move at all. Okay, 1 is still really fast. Looks like really not a lot changed. So let me go back and make sure. I can tell you why nothing changed, because I made two variables and then I neglected to actually put them in here. So x speed and y speed. Save that. Oops. Minimize. Oh wait, now we should move a lot slower, which is what I was actually expecting. Oh, it's like a snail's pace. It's like just inching. All right. That is better. Let's move this to 4. Still kind of slow. 10. It's like snapping back to 0 for some reason. What did I do? I must have broke something. Let's take a look at our code here. Oh, right. So I'm setting the I'm setting the position to the variable, but what I actually need to do is I need to take the transform dot position dot x and add it to the variable. And why can I never spell transform correctly? I don't know. Position or anything. Yeah. Alright, so rookie mistake there. But, you know, we live and learn. Like Sonic the Hedgehog. Alright. Oh, there we go. There's some good movement here. And it's nice, smoother movement. And we're not jumping all over the place. It's a 10. I think I want to be a little bit slower and then have items that make you faster. Yeah, this is 8 right here. I think this is good. And like I said, that time.delta time is essentially the difference of times between. So like a few milliseconds pass between frame 1 and frame 2, right? And that scales it by that time difference. So if your frames are moving faster, you've got 60 frames, 120 frames, 240 frames, it doesn't matter. You're going to move at the same speed. So everybody gets a consistent experience regardless on the type of machine and hardware that they're using to play. All right, so we got a guy. He can move around. We're gonna need to spawn some enemies. So let's make a. Let's make an enemy. I'm gonna go ahead and make a triangle for our enemy, and then obviously we can put some art there later. I'm gonna scoot them off, and make an enemies folder. Probably make an enemy controller script. Create C# script. There we go. Enemy controller. And usually it doesn't open right away on the first one. We gotta like, might just be my computer. It's weird. Alright, so I think I want to, on update, I want to make the enemy move towards the player. Enemies aren't going to have, enemies aren't going to have any inputs from the controller, so we can basically skip that step and just make them move on an update. So transform I'm trying to look for translate. UI elements. No, isn't it a transform thing? Transform. is API updating in here? See, sometimes the autocomplete like goes to ham, and maybe that's a reason for me to get off of Visual Studio and then try something else, because like it really is doing too much sometimes. Like it'll autocomplete something that I don't need, and then it'll automatically put in the namespace for it, and then it's like I don't need the namespace, so you know what are we even doing here? So the first thing I think I want to do is get a transform for the player position. And then we can probably also go find player, make that a void. So then we want to go player position equals find object of type, and then because there's only gonna be one player on the scene, we can find the player controller, find their transform, and then that's going to set that. So on every update loop, I want to find the player. And then yeah, vector2 dot move towards transform dot position, and then the target is going to be the player position dot position. And then I really should add a public float move speed, so that we could put in the speed that it'll be moving towards the player, and that will be move speed times time dot delta time. And I think that's really good. Yeah. I could probably, if I want to optimize this, because I might want to when like I start spawning tons and tons of enemies. But what we could do is find the player object right at start, and then always go, hey, that player object that we found, what's its position in the update, instead of finding it every time, because doing a search is very processor intensive, so that's like something to keep in mind. But for the sake of doing it quick and dirty right now, we're not really going to worry about that. Let's take my enemy. Let's make him red, because that's like a good enemy color. Then we'll add this enemy controller. We'll go with move speed 4, so that we're able to run away from him. Obviously, harder enemies are going to get faster and faster and faster. And he does not seem to be moving. So, what could be going on here? What indeed? So, we are finding the player, but we are not actually moving. So, after we find the player, we should move. Alright. Where are we at here? So something about that's not working super great. Let's try this. Game object player equals find object of type. Oh, you know what I probably could have done, but I'm gonna go ahead and continue it this way. Is I probably, instead of just putting dot transform, I could have probably put get component, and I think that might have worked better. So on find player, he's in my way. Player dot I think that might have been my problem. Oh yeah, there it goes. It's chasing me now. Whee! That's obviously, you know, a lot slower than me, but it's gonna get me, and that's gonna be it. So I think that's an okay start. I'd like these to collide with each other. I don't want the enemy absorbing straight into me. And then I also think that both of these guys need health of some sort. And so I could code my player to have some health and my enemy to have some health. What I think I should do is make like a battle unit script that they can both inherit from, so that I only have to code script I only have to script health once, and then the enemy can handle it a little differently, and then the player can handle it a little differently, but they'll both have essentially that same value. So, I think, let's go here, base battle unit. Public float health. And then maybe I'm gonna do max. And current health. And I just abbreviated cur to 3 letters so that these variables are the same length, just for aesthetic reasons. You can obviously name them whatever you want. That helps you keep track of them, and everything like that. Now, the main reason I made both of these public, even though you probably really don't want to edit this through the editor, is I want other scripts to be able to access this variable. Because what if I have something that like deals percentage damage based on the amount of health you have remaining? I can easily say, well, what's that current health remaining? So yeah, right here we want to say when the thing starts, current health needs to equal max health. That's a given. And then let's see, what else do we need? I think for now I'm gonna leave that alone. And we're just gonna say, well, okay. Actually, public virtual take damage. I think I'm actually gonna float. What's wrong with this? Virtual is not value. It must have a return type. Oh. Virtual void. Take damage, and I'm gonna float for the damage. We'll put DMG. And then we'll make another one, public virtual void deal damage float DMG. And the reason being, and I might need to put some more into these to spice them up, but the reason being is both the player and the enemy are able to take damage and do damage, but they're going to handle those differently. So these are these virtual functions. We can later create what's called override functions, where an override function is going to do essentially that function, but differently with its own set of code. So let's go ahead and do that. And then our enemy is going to inherit from the base battle unit. And then we're going to do base. Isn't that how you do it? I could have sworn. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Because they're not virtual, so there won't be a base for them to start off. And then you know what I'm realizing too is that all of these guys have move speed. So since all of them have move speed, we're gonna come into here and we're gonna give move speed there, and just erase it from here. And as you see, there's no error. There's still move speed because this is inheriting from the base battle unit. So that's good. Now, I think what I want to go ahead and do is have a public void set health, and then we can just put in a float for the amount and say that current health equals amount, and then we'll come into our enemy here, and on start we're gonna call set health and put in our max health. And then, so when we start, our current health is always going to equal our max health. And I will have to retype this one more time for our player, but that's fine. So base battle unit, get rid of move speed. So we've kind of promoted that. And let's take our set health function here, copy that bad boy over. Now they're both getting their health right at the start. Of course, you don't really see any measurable effects at this point. Besides that, they're just able to share some values like move speed and health and everything like that. So let's see here. I want to know when these guys bump into each other. So we're going to have to add some colliders in the editor so that they can have some collisions. So let's go ahead and turn that back to normal so we can see more. Let's do a good old-fashioned box collider. For a 2D game, we're going to want to do a box collider 2D. And one thing you can see about the box colliders, it's very hard to see with a box, but if there's an actual sprite in here, well, let's make it invisible. See how the outside kind of lights up green? There's a little box here that's like showing you exactly where they're. You know what? Why don't I do this? Box collider 2D on the enemy. Let's go look at the enemy, and you can see there is a collider around it. So your sprite and your collision don't have to be pixel perfect if you don't want them to be. I honestly, really old games a lot of times that had hitboxes that made you go, what the hell? I didn't get hit, but I got hit, and it's really hard because they have shitty big hitboxes like this because, you know, memory limitations, and it was easier to do and things like that. I still like to use simple primary shapes like squares and circles and stuff, but I'll usually do is make them 1 or 2 pixels smaller than the sprite, so the player doesn't actually get hit on pixel perfect contact. They kind of have just a little bit of forgiveness or wiggle room, so you can go, oh my god, that was close, I thought I got hit. But really, it was just me being a super nice guy and making my game easy for you. Anyways, not the point of this, so we're just going to leave that alone. Let's make him visible again. And yeah, so now that they have colliders, they should bump into each other. And they don't. Why is that? Well, they're not solid. They have no physics, rigid bodies. So let's Oops. Let's move my camera maybe here. And let's go in here and get a ridge. Oh, it's rigid, not rigid, like a ridge. Alright. Anyways, one thing I want to say is it's not a side-scrolling game, so I absolutely do not want a gravity scale on here, because if we have the gravity scale on here, everything's just gonna fall infinitely. So let's get a rigid body on this guy, and let's say 0 on the gravity scale as well, and let's see what happens. Boom, they bumped into each other. How exciting. And as you can see in the editor, the enemy is going to keep moving in and pushing until it hits that center point of the player. So we might, one of the things we might do is say, if it contacts, it bounces back a little or something. But that's another thing. I don't necessarily want my player to rotate. So let's put a constraint in here and freeze the rotation. And now it should just get pushed directly straight back. Yeah, that's better. And then me as the player, I can move, I can push against this, and the enemy's just gonna flop around and do stuff. I might make the player or the enemy not rotate either, because once they have sprites, I don't want them spinning around. That might look kind of silly. Depending on the game you're making. I have some sprites in mind that I'm going to use. I'm going to borrow some sprites from my other game. So I'm going to want the enemies kind of standing upright at all times. So let's go in. Let's freeze their Z rotation, so that way they don't have that issue going forward. So let's deal with some collisions now. Oh yeah, you know what? Let's just for funsies here, let's give our player 100 health. And then what I want you to do is I want you to watch this current health when I click the play button. And it shot up to 100. Alright, perfect. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for my enemy. Let's just give him half of the health I have, because that'll be, why not? Yeah. I think we can do this in our base battler and say on collider enter 2D, and then I'm just gonna debug .log hit let me see if I can output something that would be indicative of who this was. Since they have different max healths, I'm going to output the max health number into the debug log, and then I'll know that it's working for both of them. That's kind of an insane way to handle it. You should probably be more thorough with your log notes. But let's go ahead and play this and see what happens. And oops. All right, so yeah, 50 hit, 100 hit. So they definitely hit each other, and it's not continuing to go because it's only going once when you enter. There is there's a different one. I think it's like on collision stay. Yeah, on collision, stay 2D. I'm just gonna say hit because we know it's working, and our log should just absolutely grossly fill up. About every there's like fixed intervals where physics are checked outside of the update loop, so it should go pretty crazy. Oops. Yep, and you can see the time is ticking up every couple seconds right here on our debug log because it keeps getting procced. So what that's gonna do is I can say enemy deals damage, player takes damage. You want to offer me a promotion to my channel? No, thank you. I'm not doing this for money. So, yeah, sorry about that, Bucko. Anyways, yeah, so that's how you're gonna be able to perform that type of action there. And let's go ahead and change this. Sorry, my cat's sitting right in front of the monitor again. Can you guys tell him to behave today? No? Okay. Well, actually, I think I need to refill my coffee cup. Mr. Fluffy, you stay right there. And entertain everybody for me. I'll be right back. Okay, Mr. Fluffy. I know the people probably enjoy watching you a lot more, but I'm back, sir. So if we can just all right. Let's go Power Rangers, right? So I think when we collide with somebody, I think we want to have this handled differently by both the enemy and the player, because collisions is how the enemy deals damage, but the player is going to deal damage primarily just with their weapons. So the player is going to only take damage. So we're gonna want to deal damage, and then besides the damage amount, I think I also need to pass in the first of all, we need to check if what we're colliding is the player. So if collision dot get component GameObject.getComponent. Player controller is not null. So what this is going to do is this is going to say that if your thing that you're colliding into has a player controller attached to it, then it's going to equal something. Otherwise, you collide with another enemy, you collide with a barrel, you collide with anything else that doesn't have a player controller, that's going to be null. We're gonna skip all the code in here. So now what I want to do is I think I want to go public override deal damage, and then our base doesn't actually have anything in it as of right now, so I'm gonna comment that out, but I'm gonna leave it there in case there's something I think of that everybody needs to do on a deal damage. But then I'm going to say we're also gonna need an enemy should, in theory, only be doing damage to a player. So player controller player. Or there's already a game object for a player, actually. So since we already know who the player is and there's already one player, we don't need to pass that in. What we do need to do is player dot get component base battle unit, or player controller dot take damage and the damage amount. So now, if I need to add anything special to my damage for whatever type of enemy this is, we can do that. And here's the other thing is I need to know what the our base damage is going to be, like our attack power. So after health, I'm going to do public float ATK for attack, and it's not a, if I can spell, it's a float. It's a floating point. It just basically means that I can it's like integers are whole numbers, and floats are like doubles in the way that they can have decimal points on them. That probably didn't make sense to a lot of people, but just hang with me. I promise there's a reason. So now we're going to say deal damage in the amount of attack. And Bob's your uncle. So I deal damage in the point of attack, and then we're going to take damage as the player. So in the player, public override void take damage. I don't think there's anything in the base take damage, but there could be useful, because I think that no matter what, our enemy and our player are going to take damage the same exact way, and that means your current health is going to minus equal your damage. And then we can, later on, we can check if you died or whatever. But basically that's saying, hey, minus equals is like if I said current health equals current health minus damage. So yeah, I think that's really good. Yeah, I think what we're gonna see now, if we run the game, is we're gonna see our player continually lose health as the enemy hits them. So our current health here is what we're gonna want to watch. Let me give my enemy some damage. I'm gonna set it to 1, so it's not that high of an amount. And then let's let this go. Click on my player again so we can see that amount. Boom, as you can see, my health got lowered to 56. We would get touched again, it gets a little lower. Every time you get touched, it gets a little lower. And then now we're hitting negatives, which obviously you would be dead at this point, but we haven't coded any logic for getting killed or anything. So yeah, that is enemies hurting you. I think we need a visual representation of your health. And so let's go ahead and make another sprite here, but I'm gonna call this one your health bar. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make it like 0.1, and then I'm gonna move it negative 1.2, 1.1. Yeah, I like that, negative 0.7. We'll make this a little red health bar, or maybe green. Green works, yeah, I like green better. Differentiate it from the enemy there. Even though health is usually displayed as red, because like hearts are red and blood is red and things like that. I think I'm gonna use green, at least in this example. And then let's see. Alright, so there's some stuff that would be in if this was a UI element relating to like the scale of it, scaling from like a pivot point, but I'm not seeing. Unfortunately, the pivot point is attached to like the sprite itself in the asset, so I'd have to import a custom sprite and then make that like have a pivot point for us. So let's go ahead and open our sprite editor here. I use GIMP. It's like a free open source Photoshop. Fun fact. One of the first ever murder cases that utilized image manipulation software to solve it, they had actually used GIMP to find out some really indistinguishable by the human eye colors. They were able to enhance them and show fingerprints on a thing. I forget what it was. It was like fabric or something. But basically, no amount of real life stuff was able to see it. So they used photo manipulation software, and they weren't even sure if they were going to get a conviction off of it because it had never been used before. So it kind of set the precedent that you can use photo manipulation, but you have to be very careful. Like law enforcement has to show exactly what they did to the original photo to show like how they got the results that they got, so that the judge and jury and everybody can go, oh yeah, that makes sense, or no, you clearly doctored this photo. So it's there's like a high degree of scrutiny upon it, but it's very interesting. It was GIMP. not Photoshop. So don't throw your money away for Adobe Photoshop because, yeah, it's dumb. And I noticed a lot of their ads right now are really pushing, oh, you can use AI, like, autofill the background. Like, dude, no one wants to use AI art. I'm sorry if you think that's cool, but I think it always ends up looking very generic and bland. So let's do. Should I do a gradient or something cool? Or just do a solid color? Yeah, you know what? Let's do a little gradient here. We don't need to do a rainbow or nothing crazy. I think we can do like this. Go. Hello? I was supposed to do something, wasn't it? Am I tripping? Oh, the opacity was super low. That makes sense. Okay. Um, all right. I think I like that. So let's export this. Pictures. Uh, Sprites. I'll say health bar, even though this could probably be used for lots of different things. We'll just go in and do that. We'll go back into Unity here. Let's create a folder for our UI elements. And then I'm just gonna go import new asset. And then we're gonna go into our pictures and our sprites and health bar. And then we're going to, yeah, it's a sprite. And then right here, the pivot, we're gonna go left, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, pivot right there. That's perfect. I like that. I'm also going to, yeah, whatever, I'll leave the quality alone. And then this health bar, I'll put in here instead. And then we're gonna go minus 0.5. Oh, this is like way shorter than I wanted it to be. So now when we scale it, it's gonna go down like that. Alright, so I think we should have a new script for our health bar to kind of control that. So that's going to be in our stuff here, and I'm going to go health bar controller. Game object player start player is going to equal find object. Find object of type player controller. Actually, yeah, player. It doesn't need to be the actual game object because all I'm gonna do is say transform.local scale is going to equal transform.local scale times player dot max health. Wait, how do I do percentages again? It would be current health divided by max health, because the max health is always the amount that you have maximum. Yes, okay. So now we should see our little green bar shrink as we get hit. And that's not happening. How come that is? Because we have not attached our script health bar controller. Boom. All right. Oh, you know what? I did the total scale, so let's do vector 2. Is it not a vector 2? Is it a vector 3? Because there's a z attached to it. I can probably just put it in as a vector 2 and it'll won't even affect the third vector, but whatever. Let's Let's see what happens. Boom. Okay. So let's look at our player's health and make sure this matches up okay. So let's like take a hit and then run away. All right. Ooh. Yo. Oh, you know what? It's doing that every single update. So that's not so even if it's like at 98%, it's taking 98% of it away every single frame instead of saying set it to 98% of what it was. So how are we gonna rectify that so that it always shows the percentage? That's correct. I think this multiplication is really what's throwing it off. Oops, new vector 3. So that should show. I gotta do a little bit of finicking around with how I made that health bar because it's really short now. So let's scale that to 1, but let's go into our asset here. And we're gonna say 33 pixels per unit. Alright, there we go. It's a little bit longer, a little bit thicker. That's kind of a good size for it there. Yeah, that looks good. It's even going negative, which it should not, but boom. All right, took a little hit, took a little hit, took a little hit. Yeah, this looks like it's behaving exactly like it should. And obviously it's gonna keep going negative into infinity right now because we have nothing stopping us from bottoming out at 0. So I think that I could probably hard code 0 as a thing right now. I don't necessarily want to brainstorm, oh, what if I have an ability letter that lets you go into like negative health for some reason. So what I'm going to go ahead and say is that once you take your damage as a player, if current health is less than 0, current health equals 0. And I'm actually putting that just all on one line because it's so short. Normally I'm like, hey, don't do that, space your stuff out so it's readable, but this is like such a short little if statement that I don't really mind putting that on one line. And people don't like that because they don't feel it's not consistent, then definitely do it a little bit differently. But let's go ahead and go in here and check that out. And our enemy will keep pile driving us and our health hits 0 and we're good there. Obviously we want to get to a point where once the health hits 0 we completely stop the game, go to a game over state, but at this point we don't have anywhere else to go back to because there's no main menu, There's no like restart. There's a lot of stuff missing from this being a full game just yet. But what I think I want to do is start adding weapons and items for the player character to be able to attack the enemy. But at this point, I've been streaming now for about an hour, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I hope it was very educational for you guys. Anyways, have a good day.